Picture a crowd the size of a Broncos game at Mile High. Now picture a crowd that is 3 to 4 times that size. That is how many Coloradans have been waiting for their unemployment benefits since the end of last year. Now picture that same size crowd trying to crush through the online turnstiles of the state's unemployment website when it opens up those benefits tomorrow. Our Marshall Zellinger talked with the head of the state's unemployment system about how this is going to work.
We have tested the system and we feel confident that the system will be able to handle that load.
Joe Barella is the executive director of the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. CDLE sent emails to 289,000 people this week, letting them know what steps to take on the state's new MyUI Plus unemployment benefits portal to access money approved by Congress in late December. So picture a population that could fill Broomfield, Eagle, and Pueblo counties trying to go online at once.
There's a possibility that 289,000 people will not apply. We have people that possibly could have returned to work, moved out of state.
You've heard their stories.
Negative money, no money for food.
I'm down to just a few $100.
I exhausted my money January 10th.
Multiple times this week, Barella and Democratic Governor Jared Polis have responded with, well, in the end, you're going to get your back pay and be made whole.
My team has not had a day off. We worked tirelessly trying to get the program up and functional. I know that doesn't sound or it doesn't help people who had rent due on February 1st or February 15th. But, we are doing everything we can with the limitations we have to get money into people's pockets as quickly as possible.
Part of the delay was Congress not approving new benefits until the week the old benefits expired back in December. Another part of the delay was creating computer code to program those new benefits into the new MyUI Plus portal.
We had to put in identity verification measures before we released benefits. We had to verify that people weren't eligible not only in Colorado but in other states for benefits before they could apply for these federal extensions.
And just as we told you yesterday, the State Unemployment Benefits Office is preparing Coloradans for another gap in payments if Congress does not act long before these benefits expire on March 13th.
My latest intelligence from Washington is that the Senate will not take up, if a bill gets to them, until March 14th. Guess what? The program expired, and we're going to be in the same thing. There's going to be a halt to benefits because of the lack of inaction at the national level.
Here's why there could be another delay. If Congress creates new unemployment benefits, Colorado will have to wait for rules from the Department of Labor and then type in new computer code to program those rules. If Congress simply extends the benefits that are in existence right now, same thing, just for a longer period of time, there shouldn't be much of a gap. CDLE wanted to upgrade this system that's caused some of the problems back in April, but Kyle, because of the pandemic, that got put off, and it got put off 3 more times over the year until it couldn't be put off anymore.
So, Marshall, somebody goes in tomorrow to get their money. When will they actually get the cash?
It won't be in the bank account as soon as they hit enter. I'm told to think of it like a Venmo transaction. If you've got a good bank, you might see it in your account perhaps by Monday, Tuesday at the latest. And I'm sure we're going to get emails from people who on Wednesday were like, I was at the website on Saturday and I still don't have it yet.
All right, well, we'll keep listening. We'll keep working it out. Tomorrow's a positive step. Thank you, Marshall. Tonight's next question comes from a number of you, including Pamela and Gerda. You've been watching your place in the virtual line for vaccines with Kaiser Permanente go in the wrong direction, like your number is going up instead of going down with time. Kaiser says what you're seeing there are people in higher priority groups being added to the list ahead of you. Kaiser is prioritizing people 70 and older, as well as teachers, specifically older educators. I gotta say, from my perspective, I get why it's unsettling to see yourself dropping back in line, but prioritizing people at higher risk is exactly what so many of you have been asking the state to do, especially the people 70 plus who are now left to fight off increased competition for vaccination appointments with all the people who are now eligible in their upper 60s, and teachers as well. Seems to me like what Kaiser's doing here, based on its own initiative without a state mandate, is really smart. And I'd love to hear from other health systems that are finding their own ways to identify people who are at the highest risk and move them to the front of the line, because we're going to need all the systems to be able to do that as more and more people become vaccine eligible in the coming months. More than 13% of Colorado's population now has the first dose of the vaccine, 767,000 people. Bit less than half of them, 346,000, are fully immunized. When we talk about barriers to vaccine access, how about one of the most fundamental? Do you have a way to get to the appointment? Some Coloradans have had to cancel vaccine appointments because they couldn't get a ride. Our Anusha Roy looks at the role of transportation in vaccination.
There was a pattern during a vaccination clinic at the Mississippi Avenue Baptist Church in Denver.
She wouldn't be able to come to this site to get her shot.
So family and volunteers like Michelle Detling started giving rides to individual people. We heard about this in Southwest Colorado.
About 60% of the individuals that are served in our two-county region live rural.
And from a nonprofit working across the state.
Some of them are coming to us in great frustration because they weren't able to get a ride and had to reschedule an appointment or start again on a waiting list.
Jayla Sanchez-Warren with the Denver Regional Council of Governments estimates roughly 96,000 older adults may need help getting to a vaccine appointment in Colorado.
Most of these folks that are asking for transportation need door-through-door assistance.
The solution is layered and involved. The state identified specific neighborhoods and areas that are lower income with more minority families to set up clinics.
It's a trusted entity. So we're seeing like fire stations doing it, and that's awesome. We're seeing churches, some churches have vaccination sites.
Like the state, SEL Health set up a whole list of partnerships.
We had Dr. Cog Area Agency on Aging, RTD, Uber, Lyft, and Via Mobility. And then I would say the 20 plus faith leaders that truly, shuttled people to and from their churches and their neighborhoods to the National Western Complex.
Other nonprofits are using a network of neighbors willing to give neighbors rides. And in Southwest Colorado, the Public Health Department is relying on their ecosystem of community partners and transportation groups and hope it holds as more people become eligible.
One person at a time, one program at a time, way to do this.
For Next, I'm Anusha Roy.
When we're talking about people from multiple households getting rides in the same car, same bus, something like that, that's when obviously COVID protocols become super important. You don't want somebody who's at high risk being exposed like on the way to get the shot, So at least when it comes to public transport, buses and shuttles, you'll see are cutting down on the number of riders at one time. They're spacing people out and adding some plastic barriers. Something pretty vile happened on the floor of the Colorado legislature today. Democratic Representative Tom Sullivan used this morning's announcement period to talk about red flag gun control statistics. Sullivan, as you may know, got into politics after his son was shot and killed in the Aurora Theater shooting. A Republican colleague then rose to suggest that Sullivan needs to get over it.
I'm here to remind you daily what gun violence looks like. Whether you listen or not, I will continue to come to this microphone and tell you about its impact.
Now, I have suffered loss in my life, but I have learned not to hold bitterly onto that loss and never let go. I would ask all of us to consider that as we hold on to, for whatever reason, that loss, let us not be vengeful. Let us not be mean-spirited. Let us not be callous, coarse, or divisive. But let me tell you the most important lesson I learned, and I offer this to my fellow colleagues, particularly the one that just spoke, that you have to let go.
Representative Holtorf.
That was Republican State Representative Richard Holtorf of southeastern Colorado telling Representative Sullivan that he needed to get over the violent murder of his son. Vile is a strong word, but I'm open to suggestions if you have one that's a better fit. On a positive note, quick update on your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign this week. You've now raised $45,000 and counting for Urban Peak. That's the nonprofit that helps young people who have ended up on the streets of Denver. Urban Peak helps them return to their education, gets them job training. The big goal, of course, is getting these young people into safe housing and on the path to self-sufficiency in life. Whole bunch of $5 donations from all of you fine folks have added up to $45,000 for their work so far. They are thrilled and they are grateful. If you want to get in on the fun, and giving is always fun, especially when we do it as a big group, text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. I'll send you the link to join a bunch of us in donating.
There was a lot of discussion about should school close when it got to a certain temperature or not, and what that temperature should be.
We finally found the person who can solve Nick's cold case, settle once and for all whether they had school on Colorado's coldest day. He also helped us figure out why this has been such a mystery, even for locals. Next. It's the cold case that has bedeviled us for years. I have said this before, but I think that tonight we have finally solved, for the first time, the question about the coldest day in Colorado history, specifically whether the tiny town of Maybell still had school on February 1st, 1985. The school district told us earlier this week they didn't have school that day. Others in town insist they did. Well, not only do we now have the answer, I think we figured out why we heard contradictory answers from the locals up there in far northwest Colorado.
It was some of the most delightful and some of the best times.
Back in the 1980s and 90s, David Van Zandt was assistant superintendent of the sprawling Moffett County School District larger than the state of Delaware.
If you would start out and go from Craig to all the rural schools, and I would leave town about 6:30 in the morning, spending about 35 minutes at each of the schools, I wouldn't get back until 6:30 in the evening.
It gets cold up there in the winter. Van Zandt couldn't initially remember if they had school on Colorado's coldest recorded day, 61 below in Maybell, February 1st, 1985.
Your brain gets frozen, I think, and, time kind of melts the years together.
Time has melted two freezing cold days together in the minds of some locals, because there was a day in 1989 that they did close school. It made the newspaper and the yearbook because of the fact that Maybell did have school on the coldest day in state history in 1985.
I remember from that day that we did have school, it was just plain colder than Billy Hell. And when you say, did the kids come to school? The parents used their own judgment. If they were some of the ranching kids that weren't coming all the way in, I don't think they came in, but school was open.
What does Van Zandt make of the fact we're still talking about it 36 years later?
It's interesting because most people on the Front Range don't know where Craig and Maybell are, and they haven't been up there. And I can tell you that they've missed one of the most beautiful places in the whole state. The weather is just tremendous in Craig from April 1st until about September 30th. And after that, it's pretty darn cold.
So Maybell did have school on the coldest day in Colorado history. There you go. Along with David Van Zandt, I want to take a second to thank some of the other locals up in northwest Colorado who helped us solve this mystery. Bub Mock, who put us in touch, LaRonda Lawson, teacher from back in the day, Sarah, who's a 1985 Moffett grad, Terry Wheeler, who remembered the day, Jennifer Riley, who found the page in Kelly Riley Cathcart's yearbook, Shannon Lukens, along with Kathy Bassett from the Maybell Gazette, who rounded up stories from Charlene Scott, a bus driver, and Gabby McIntyre, who lived outside of town. We've had a lot of fun chasing this cold case over the last year or two, and I'll be honest, part of me is sad that it's done.
Happy Friday, everyone. We started off the morning just picture perfect. Christmassy is capturing that awesome shot of the sunrise. And this evening, a few clouds on the horizon as we await our next storm. Most of those clouds sitting across the northern and central mountains. A couple of flurries tonight, but we'll stay mostly clear here in eastern Colorado as temperatures fall to the teens and low 20s. Futurecast kicking off a dry start to the day early tomorrow morning. But by about 4 or 5 o'clock, here comes some rain here in Denver, followed quickly by snow. Of course, the high country will see the majority majority of this snow. In fact, we have advisories going around Vail for 4 to 8 inches, Rabbit Ears Pass 5 to 10. And here in Denver, I'm anticipating about an inch or so late tomorrow night through early Sunday morning. Temps stay in the 40s, but look at this big warm up ahead next Monday and Tuesday.
We swung by the skate park to ask about everyone's good news this week. Once they realized that we weren't creepy old people, they had lots to say. And there's a group in Weld County that wants to break up with Colorado and get with Wyoming. An update on their relationship goals. Next. The conservative group that's trying to turn Weld County into Wyoming's nubbin has run into trouble because they were not exactly sure how to go about breaking away from the state of Colorado to join Wyoming. The campaign began as an idea for a county-wide ballot initiative in Weld County, a vote on whether county leaders should look into leaving liberal Denver and Boulder to be annexed into Wyoming. Just got stuck out of the corner. But now they've realized that Colorado's Constitution defines the borders of our state. So to change the border, Weld County separatists would need the entire state to vote on a constitutional amendment to allow it. They say they're going to try. It's not the first time that part of northern or eastern Colorado has talked about breaking away. Weld was one of 11 counties to vote on that idea in 2013. Voters in Weld County did not vote for secession. Part of each Friday's program here succeeds to create time and space for your good news, whatever's making headlines in your life. This week we went to the Denver skate park to ask the youths.
I got some great news. We are at Denver Skate Park, aka D Park, and we are skateboarding, scootering, biking, everything.
I like the microphone, it's pretty cool, it's pretty fancy.
You got the cameras going?
Tell them some good news. Some good news.
It's recording?
It's about to be summer. Spring, at least. No more winter.
Other good news, they shoveled the skate park, so we're riding freely finally. It's been about a week without riding, and this is like our gym membership, which is free, but my good news is that I freelance, and when the restaurants open up, I'm here for any website design, video photography.
My mom had foot surgery last week and it went well. It's fantastic, I'm hyped.
And some more good news, my grandma got the vaccine. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
That's also fantastic. Very happy that we're gonna have a society that might get towards normalcy.
Where would you like me? Just being able to go outside and not have -degree weather. Amazing time. Happy it's out. Happy to be out. Happy this weather's good and all that. I'm breathing. Healthy. Can't beat that. We're able to cruise around. Any day that we can cruise, it's good.
Thanks, 9 News.
Thank you, youths. We finish the week with your feedback next. This is the last night I ever get to talk about the cold in Maybell, so I'm going to milk it for all it's worth. Sarah Nadler writes in tonight to say that she was a senior that year. Her sister was a sophomore. Mom taught at the middle school, so they all had to go in. She said that they would go out in that 61 below cold to start the cars every couple of hours, and said that their friends who lived on ranches didn't come in that day because they were out tending to the livestock. I just love that story. See you next time.